Can I just say before we get into questions, our thoughts are with people in Dunedin at the moment who are wrestling with those floods and that extreme weather events. As you know, Dunedin has declared a local state of emergency. Our advice to everybody would be evacuate if you can and don't wait for the advice to do so. We have Minister Mitchell who came down on the ground yesterday and has been on the ground there assessing what we may need to do from a government point of view in due course, but for right now it's about making sure that everybody takes the advice that they're given locally and responds quickly. With that, happy to take your questions.
Minister, the advice Casey
Sorry.
Sorry? The advice Casey Costello released yesterday said there needs to be more research into the safety of heated tobacco products. Why is the government encouraging smokers to use these products when their safety isn't known?
Look, we're absolutely determined to deliver on smoke-free 2025. We've had great progress in the last year. We've gone from 8.6% down to 6.8% daily smokers. To get that target, we need to get down to 5%. We've seen huge power of an alternative like vapes, which has actually taken up, I think, 230,000 people have quit smoking off the back of vapes. And we're open to looking at other alternatives that actually stops people from smoking and getting them into something that actually is better for them than smoking.
Now, you have said that you don't think Philip Morris will benefit from the tax cuts, but Casey Costello and other advice says that it will. So who is writing this?
Well, the people we want to benefit are New Zealanders. We want New Zealanders off smoking, and we are determined to make sure that we drive towards our smoke-free 2025 goal of 5% daily smokers. New Zealand has some of the lowest daily smoking rates in the world. We've made tremendous progress, compared to other countries over many decades now, and we need to continue that work. And so we want to make sure that we'll look at alternatives, we'll give it a go, we'll try anything in order to make sure that we actually move those smoking rates down.
Minister, having seen that independent advice, do you still have confidence in Casey Costello as Associate Health Minister?
Yeah, I haven't seen the advice, but I have confidence in the Minister because my conversations with her are about how we actually lower smoking rates, and I can tell you she's very determined to do so.
Labor's called for her to be sacked. What's your response?
Well, no disrespect, I don't listen to anything from Labor given the botched mess that they left the healthcare system in, and that's what Shane Reddy and I are doing, is cleaning it up.
I have a couple of questions for Minister.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Sure. Kia ora koutou.
Minister Luxon, kia ora, thank you. Have you seen any evidence that heated tobacco products are safer than cigarettes?
I have not, but it is not in my purview anyway. My focus is on committing to the health targets and making sure New Zealanders get better health outcomes. To that effect, Minister Costello has the lead and she has our support.
Do you think, though, that heated tobacco products could be a gateway for people to take up cigarettes?
That's actually for Minister Costello and the advice that she receives to make a decision on. She's been supported by Cabinet collectively, and we're all committed to driving down smoking rates.
Minister Reddy, do you have confidence in Health NZ's leadership given the cost blowout?
I absolutely have confidence in Health New Zealand leadership, particularly since substantively the cost blowout was in the hands of the previous team.
The finance documents that are being tabled on Monday, do you think they'll support what you've been saying?
Yes.
You mentioned in your speech, Prime Minister, about changing the role, I guess, of the private sector and how it interacts with the public healthcare system. Just wondered if you could explain what you meant by that, or what your vision for that is.
Well, what we've got is a hospital like Ormiston Hospital has had a long-standing partnership with, say, Counties Manukau, DHB, under the old system, and that has been a long-standing feature of New Zealand's healthcare system. Private hospitals are often set up to do very much specialist exercises like, or procedures like cataracts or hip and knee replacements, and to be able to power through them. And we've had a history of outsourcing the delivery of those procedures through the DHB by outsourcing out into the private system. So what we're saying is, look, we just need to see an integrated. We've got capacity in the New Zealand healthcare system. We've got major challenges around waitlist times, and we are very open to using private capacity in order to accelerate and to shorten up those wait lists. That's no different from the past position that the previous administrations have had before us, but it's about making sure we have an integrated healthcare system that leverages the skills, the strengths of both the public and the private sector. We have a big job to do to turn around our public healthcare sector, which we're very committed to doing, but this is about an and, not an or.
Do you have thoughts on what's the role of private capital when it comes to, potentially investing in public health assets, for example?
We're very open to that. We're very open to public-private partnerships in the building of critical health infrastructure. It'll work in some cases, it won't work in others, but it's done on a case-by-case basis.
Have you been talking to, I guess, people in the finance industry or about what shape that could take, potential residential?
Just our new government wants to get infrastructure built. We have a massive infrastructure deficit, whether it's on schools, whether it's in health, hospitals, whether it's on roads, and as you know, we're open to new and different funding and financing tools. Many other countries around the world have adopted them many, many decades ago. New Zealand has been late to the party. We want to close the infrastructure deficit. We won't be able to do it all with government funding, and that's why we're very, very open to public-private partnerships, toll roads, other funding and financing mechanisms so that we can pull infrastructure forward and get it built decades earlier than it would otherwise be done.
Just on toll roads, so there's a big protest planned in Woodville this weekend against the proposal to toll the Manawatu-Tararua Highway. What's your response to locals to that?
Yeah, look, Simeon Brown's working through what we need to do around tolling in general across the country, and what we're saying is going forward we are going to partner with private capital to get roads built quicker, and one of the consequences of that is, yes, there will be tolls, but I can tell you New Zealanders really appreciate having brand new roads built that actually improve their economic well-being, but also improve the social outcomes of being able to get to their friends and family in a much quicker way, less congested, as we've seen with roads, for example, like the Waikato Expressway. We want more of that. In order to do that, we're going to partner with private capital, and tolls will be a consequence of that. We've got to make sure we do that right, and that we've got the logic and the framework, and that's what Simeon Brown will work through as Minister of Transport.
Minister, why should the government be underwriting big developers? Are you prepared to take this risk given the current economic climate?
Well, what we see is an economy that will be improving, and as you can see, our job has been to get government spending under control. That has led to a fall in inflation. We expect further falls in inflation back within the band. We now have a downward trajectory on interest rates. We have rising levels of business confidence, the highest it's been in 10 years. The next thing is we want to see growth and obviously employment. And so as we prepare for that situation, we know that at the moment, with high interest rates and low level of consents, underwriting these developments right now is the right thing to do, so that when we actually bounce out of that economic cycle, which we can see, and we rebound out, we've actually got the houses in the system that we desperately need.
How can you guarantee that this program will deliver when previous underwrite programs like KiwiBuild didn't?
Yeah, very different from KiwiBuild in terms of construct, and feel free to talk to Chris Bishop, who will talk you more through that. Yep.
What's to stop these houses being snapped up by investors and speculators instead of first-time buyers?
Well, again, I'd just say to you, this is nothing like KiwiBuild. We have designed this differently. What we are doing here is supporting the residential housing market at a time, at a low point in the cycle, knowing that we need to be able to have building happening for when we rebound economically, and those houses are going to be there at that time. So, this is the right thing for us to do in order to be thinking a bit further down the road, which is what we're trying to do, to make sure that as the economy improves, we have the houses that we need to go forward with.
There's no requirement on these houses needing to be bought by first-time buyers?
Again, I'll let you talk to Chris Bishop, who's spoken about that today, in terms of the detail of the program. But again, there's no caps. There's a lot less constraints, and what we're doing here is giving an underwrite to residential developers to make sure that we've got the housing stock we need when the economy rebounds.
And what kind of, going back to these public-private partnerships, what model do you see that taking? You're talking about, private investors perhaps building a hospital and leasing it back to the Crown? Or?
There's all sorts of mechanisms. If you go look at other advanced countries all around the world, whether it's in state of Victoria, state of New South Wales, whether it's in other countries of similar size to New Zealand and other Western democracies, it's quite a common practice. There's no one model that fits. It's not right for every project. But again, on a case-by-case basis, which is what our National Infrastructure Agency will be assessing, we've got to get the right funding and financing mechanism in place for a Three Waters investment, for a hospital investment, for a roading investment, and make sure that we've got the right partner, the right mechanism, the right construct for the project that it actually is. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. And having spent time talking to a Labor Premier in Victoria and a Labor Premier in New South Wales and former Liberal Premiers in both those states, I can tell you, their learning has been to get the right funding and financing tool in place for the right type of project.
How reliant is the public healthcare system on the private healthcare system? You mentioned operations are being done in the private system and always have been, but I wondered maybe if you could paint a picture of what is the situation at the moment in terms of how much the public system is.
I'll let Shane talk to that. Yep.
Thank you. Just over 10% of our elective procedures are completed in private at the moment.
Right. And how does that compare historically?
Look, it's mostly plateaued. I think a very small increase over time, like over a decade, but mostly plateaued at around about 10 to 12%.
And how do you see that changing in the future? Do you expect it to maintain that?
Look, as the Prime Minister said, we're very interested in entertaining collaborations with private where we can utilise capacity that they may have, that we may be able to purchase. So at the end of the day, we can do hips, knees, cataracts that we otherwise might not be able to. We are interested in having that discussion.
Right.
Awesome. Just one more on Dunedin, if I can.
Yeah, sure.
Is government doing enough to support the people of Otago, especially those hard hit by flooding in South Dunedin?
Yeah, look, I'll just be really clear. The events and the rain events and the tidal events are still going on right now. And what's important is the response right now, and that's about making sure with the council, who are doing a great job, our first responders, civil defence, who are doing a great job. Minister Mitchell very proactively got down. He saw the red weather warning, actually got down to Dunedin, I think the day before yesterday. And has been there on the ground. But right now, our advice is we'll worry about the recovery, but what we've got to really focus on right now is the response, and that means that actually making sure that people are safe. We still have slips, we still have roads out of it, 22 roads I think out of action. We've got 12 rivers, of which most are receding, but 2, I think Tyree and Clutha are still on the rise. We've got weather still in obviously down there all through the course of the day up until probably about 9 o'clock tonight. So it's about monitoring, it's about making sure we've got the response, and it's making sure that locals understand, please, please, please follow the advice of the local civil defence. Also use your common sense and evacuate if you need to evacuate, and follow the advice very, very strongly. We'll worry about the recovery and what the situation is afterwards, but for right now we're still in the response phase before we move to the recovery phase.
Given we've seen a significant amount of adverse weather events in New Zealand in the last 18 months, what are the ways the government is preparing to see more of these impacts?
Yeah, well, there's quite a bit that we need to do. One is we want to get better at the response to these types of events, and that's actually, what we've seen recently with the review on the North Island weather events about what else can we do to strengthen NEMA, for example. And those are conversations that have been happening just actually in recent weeks. But you've seen the different reports that have come out off the back of the North Island weather events. So it's about continuing to improve and get better with our standard operating procedures in the response. I saw a very good example of that earlier in the year where we had fires on the Port Hills that were very similar to what had been run 5 or 6 years earlier, and we had a much better response, a really world-class, excellent response. So we want to keep getting better at the response side of it through NEMA, but we also need to do climate adaptation work as well, and that's why you've seen Minister Watts work towards trying to find a bipartisan framework, because this will be an issue for New Zealand for many decades ahead under many different governments that will involve private landowners, banks, insurers, councils, central government, and we have to invent a framework for which we can actually build more climate resilience and adaptation into New Zealand.
Do you agree with that principle? Do you agree with that principle in the climate report, resilience report, I think that came out this week, that the role of the government is not to necessarily protect wealth when it comes to, compensating citizens around climate change and adverse effects?
So I'm not quite sure of the question.
Well, I think that they were mainly talking about establishing the principle that, when it comes to government bailouts for certain things around homeowners who might be affected in the future, around climate events, I think the committee was making the point that it's not the role of the government to necessarily protect wealth in those instances.
Yeah, well, I think that's the really hard work to work through, because there's no way the government can deliver against that and fund and reimburse everybody for that. And that's why I say there are many parties involved here. There's the landowners and the property owners themselves who have to take some responsibility, the insurers, the banks, the local councils, the regional councils, and also central government. And just remember, there will also be issues over multiple generations and under multiple types and flavours and colours of government. So what we're striving for is trying to create a framework to have exactly that conversation about who carries the risk and how is it shared across those stakeholders. But importantly, how do we also, we'd like to try and build out a bipartisan approach to this, because it's a New Zealand issue, not a political issue. And so that's the work that Simon Watts has been engaging with other parties around in recent months as well. Okay, thanks team.